At 11:18 on the hottest night Arizona had seen in 20 years, my best friend appeared outside my workshop with a cooler, 2 towels, and a look that meant my plans no longer mattered. "Get in the truck, Ethan," Lila said. "We're going swimming." 47 minutes later, we stood beside a black, spring-fed lake hidden beyond the desert hills. I opened the cooler, found water, sandwiches, a flashlight, and no swimsuit. Not hers. Not mine. When I asked what she was doing, she looked toward the moonlit water and said, "I didn't forget it. I needed you to come before you could talk yourself out of the truth." Then she handed me a sealed letter written by her dead brother. Before I tell you what was inside that letter, take a second to subscribe and stay with me. Some nights change your life quietly. This one broke mine open. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 30 that summer, a structural engineer in Mesa who found weaknesses before buildings failed. Steel and concrete made sense. People did not. 3 years earlier, my fiancé had left while I recovered from a job site injury, saying I treated every emotion like a hazard report. After that, I kept life simple. Work, my repair shop, Sunday dinner with my mother, and Lila Hart. Lila was 26, exactly 4 years younger than me, a pediatric nurse whose laugh could calm frightened children. She had been my best friend for 8 years, and she was the younger sister of Sam Hart, the man whose death I had never forgiven myself for. Lila watched me read the name on the envelope. "Ethan, only open this at Copper Hollow." The handwriting belonged to Sam. My mouth went dry. "Where did you get this?" "In my mother's storage unit, inside his old tackle box." "Your mother cleared his things years ago." "She thought she had." Lila folded her arms, but I saw her fingers trembling. "The unit is being emptied tomorrow. I found the box this afternoon." I looked at the lake. Copper Hollow had once been a youth camp owned by Lila's grandparents. Sam and I had spent summers there repairing docks, racing canoes, and pretending we were too old for ghost stories. The camp closed after a wildfire damaged the access road. In the years since, the land had been sold twice and locked behind a chain gate that Lila had opened with a key she should not have possessed. "You invited me for a swim," I said. "I needed you here." "You said nothing about Sam." "If I had, you would have asked 10 questions, called 3 lawyers, and decided it was safer to wait until morning." "That would have been reasonable." "That is why I didn't tell you." I held up the envelope. "And the swimsuits?" Her eyes met mine. "I didn't bring one." "You didn't bring mine either." I assumed a man who keeps bolt cutters, rope, flares, and a portable air compressor behind his truck seat might also own spare clothes. "I have work clothes." "Then tonight I'm swimming in an engineering firm t-shirt." The answer was so perfectly Lila that, against every instinct tightening inside me, I almost smiled. Almost. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single page and a small brass key taped to the bottom. "Ethan, if Lila found this, then I ran out of time or courage. Maybe both. At Copper Hollow, swim to the old race marker near the north wall. Under the 3rd float is a steel box. The key is for that box. Do not open it alone. Do not give it to Calder. And before you decide this is your fault, remember that guilt is not the same thing as responsibility. Take care of my sister, but do not build a cage around her and call it protection. Sam." For a few seconds, the desert seemed silent enough to hear the blood moving through my ears. Marcus Calder had been our employer when Sam died. He was still my employer. Calder Structural Group designed hospitals, schools, apartment towers, and civic buildings across the Southwest. Sam had been a field inspector. I had been the junior engineer who signed the preliminary report on the pedestrian bridge where he fell. The official investigation concluded that a temporary handrail had failed after being installed incorrectly, Sam had gone over the edge before anyone could reach him. I had spent 6 years believing my report had missed something. Lila took the letter from my hand and read it again, though she already knew every word. "What steel box?" I asked. "I don't know." "What did Sam tell you before he died?" "That he was worried about a project. He said numbers were being changed and people were signing things they hadn't inspected." She looked toward the dark water. "I thought he meant billing." "I was 18, Ethan. He told me not to worry, so I didn't. You should have called me when you found this." "I did call you. You said the power was out and you wanted to swim." "The power was out. I wanted to swim. Both statements were technically true." I gave her a look. She lifted her chin. "You came." That was the problem with Lila. She knew exactly which part of me would always come when she asked. The heat pressed against us even at midnight. The temperature had reached 117 that afternoon, and the stone around Copper Hollow still radiated warmth. The lake was fed by an underground spring and stayed cold all year. Moonlight stretched across it in a narrow silver road. The old race marker floated about 60 yards from shore, a dark vertical shape near the northern rock wall. I found 2 clean company shirts, athletic shorts, and scrub pants Lila had once left in my workshop. "You kept these?" she asked. "You leave things everywhere." Her smile faded. "We don't have to do this tonight." "Yes, we do." I clipped a waterproof flashlight to my wrist and slipped a rescue knife into my shorts. "We swim together. If the current feels wrong, we turn back." "It's a lake." "Spring-fed lakes can pull near rock openings." "There he is. The man who turns improvised clothing swimming into a safety briefing." "Change behind the truck." "Bossy. Alive." Her expression softened. "That too." We changed on opposite sides of the truck. When Lila stepped out wearing my gray company shirt over her scrub pants, the hem reached halfway down her thighs. She had tied the shirt at one side so it would not balloon in the water. Her dark hair was braided over one shoulder, and the brass key hung from a cord around her neck. I had seen her in evening dresses, hospital scrubs, muddy hiking clothes, and once in a ridiculous inflatable dinosaur costume for a children's fundraiser. Nothing about the borrowed shirt should have made my chest tighten. It did. She caught me looking. "This is what happens when you invite a woman swimming and fail to provide appropriate resort services." "You invited me." "Then your complaint should be directed to management." I walked past her toward the water before my face revealed too much. The first step into Copper Hollow was cold enough to steal my breath. Lila hissed beside me. "You said spring-fed," she whispered. "I did." "You failed to say glacial." "We are in Arizona." "Then explain this betrayal." I waded deeper until the water reached my waist. "Ready?" "No." "Good answer." She looked at me, suddenly serious. "Don't let go of me." The words struck deeper than she intended. I held out my hand. "I won't." We pushed off together. The borrowed clothes slowed Lila, so I matched her pace. Halfway across, she floated beneath the moon. "I forgot how big the sky is out here," she said. Sam used to say the camp made the stars brighter so it could charge admission. He told me they were holes in heaven made by people checking on us. For a moment, I could hear him laughing from the old dock. Lila's fingers found mine. "I miss him." "So do I." "You never say that." "I miss him every day," I admitted. "Sometimes I hear him in the workshop. Sometimes I avoid your mother because I still expect him in her kitchen. Sometimes I hate you for having his eyes." Her grip tightened. "That is terrible." "It is honest. I'll take honest." We reached the marker. Its sun-bleached number, 17, was barely visible above the waterline. 3 floats hung from a rusted cable beneath it. I took the brass key from Lila and clipped her cord to my wrist. "Stay here." "No." "Lila, the letter said not to open it alone." It did not say you had to dive with me. I came this far wearing your company logo across my chest. I'm finishing the job. Arguing would waste breath. I handed her the second flashlight. We inhaled and went under. The world turned black and green. My beam found the first float, then the second. The third cable disappeared into weeds along the rock wall. We followed it down 8 feet, then 10. A steel box had been chained to an old anchor ring. Rust covered the lid, but the lock was brass. Lila reached for it. Something looped around her ankle. She jerked, releasing a burst of bubbles. A length of discarded fishing line tightened around her scrub pants. She kicked harder and made it worse. I grabbed her waist, forced her still, and pulled the rescue knife from my pocket. My lungs began to burn. Lila's eyes widened in the flashlight beam, but she stopped fighting. That saved us. I cut once, missed, repositioned, and sliced through the line. She shot upward. I followed with the box against my chest. We broke the surface together. Lila coughed and clung to the marker. I caught her under the arms. "Look at me," I said. "I'm fine." "Look at me." Her eyes found mine. "Breathe in, slow." Again. She obeyed. When her breathing steadied, anger replaced fear. "You knew there might be fishing line?" "No." "You brought a knife." "I bring a knife around water." "Why?" "Because once, when I was 19, Sam tied my canoe to a buoy with 6 knots and pushed me overboard." Despite herself, she laughed. Then the laugh broke, and she pressed her forehead against my shoulder. I held her with one arm and the steel box with the other. "You said you wouldn't let go," she whispered. I didn't. The way she said it made the lake feel suddenly smaller. We swam back side by side. Near shore, headlights flashed beyond the ridge. I stopped. Lila followed my gaze. "Did someone come through the gate?" "Kill your flashlight." We went dark. A vehicle moved slowly along the upper road, too far away to identify. It paused near my truck, then continued beyond the trees. "Could be security," Lila whispered. "Security would use the main access road." "You think someone followed us?" "I think we should get dressed and leave." We climbed out, wrapped ourselves in towels, and moved behind the truck. The front passenger tire had been cut. Not punctured by rock, cut through the sidewall. Lila stared at it. That was new. I checked the other tires. The left rear was damaged too. "Get inside," I said. "Ethan, inside, lock the doors." She did not argue. That frightened me more than if she had. I opened the steel box. Inside were 3 flash drives sealed in plastic, a small digital recorder, photocopied inspection sheets, and a photograph of Sam standing beside Marcus Calder at a construction site. Across the back, Sam had written, "East Mesa Children's Pavilion. Expansion joints changed after approval. Check invoices against field logs." Lila leaned across the seat. "That hospital opened 5 years ago." "You worked there." Her face changed. The headlights returned. I shut the box, slid it into the locked compartment beneath my truck bed, and took a flare from my emergency kit. Not to light, but because the steel cap made a useful striking tool. Then I called county dispatch and reported the vandalism, our location, and the approaching vehicle. "No deputies available nearby," the dispatcher said. "Estimated response, 40 minutes. The vehicle stopped 30 yards behind us. A man stepped out. Even before he entered the moonlight, I recognized the shape of his shoulders. Marcus Calder. He was 58, silver-haired, and careful enough to make threats sound like career advice. He had hired me, paid for Sam's funeral, and once called the firm a family. "Ethan," he called, "we need to talk." Lila's hand closed around my wrist. He knew. "Stay in the truck." "No," I turned to her. Please." That one word did what the order could not. She nodded. I stepped into the road but kept distance between us. Calder stopped near the damaged tire. Unfortunate place for car trouble. You followed us. I followed company property. My truck is mine. Sam's files are not. So he knew exactly what was in the box. You cut the tires? I asked. His expression barely moved. I came to prevent two grieving people from making a mistake. Breaking into a dead man's evidence tends to create the wrong impression. Sam's notes were unverified. He was under enormous stress. Do not use his death to discredit him. His gaze shifted toward Lila. She should not be involved. Her brother died. She is involved. And your signature is on the bridge review. Release those files and the investigation reopens. You could lose your license. Then why are you worried? His expression hardened. I protected you after Sam's accident. From what? From the consequences of a report you should not have signed. A cold understanding settled over me. You changed it. Calder said nothing. You changed my report after I signed it. I corrected incomplete work. Behind me, the truck door opened. Lila stepped out holding her phone at chest level. Keep talking, she said. The recorder appreciates clarity. Calder moved toward her. I stepped between them. He stopped inches from me. Move. No. You are destroying your career for a nurse who dragged you into a lake in the middle of the night. The insult was meant to make Lila look reckless and me look foolish. Instead, it cleared something inside me. I am standing between you and a woman you tried to frighten, I said. My career is not the part of this situation in danger. His eyes hardened. You think strength is raising your voice? I haven't raised it. That was true. I did not need to. A siren sounded faintly beyond the ridge. Calder looked toward the road, then back at me. You have no idea what those files will cost. Neither did Sam. He returned to his SUV and drove away before the deputy arrived. A deputy documented the tires and arranged a tow. By dawn, we were in my workshop, Lila wrapped in a moving blanket, the drives spread across my workbench beside untouched coffee. You should go home, I said. Lila stared at me. After that? You have a shift at 7. I called out. You never call out. My best friend was threatened beside a secret lake after pulling evidence from the water. I used the phrase family emergency. It seemed accurate. I rubbed both hands over my face. This can ruin you too. How? The files involve your hospital. Calder will say you stole records or manipulated evidence. I didn't. That will not stop him. No, but maybe you trying to stop me will. I looked at her. She stood on the other side of the workbench, exhausted, frightened, and furious. Sam told you not to build a cage around me, she said. You read the same letter I did. I'm trying to protect you. Then stand beside me. Do not shove me behind you and call it love. The last word landed between us. Lila heard it too. Her anger faltered. I went still. You said love. I said what Sam wrote. No, you didn't. She looked away. For 8 years, Lila and I had lived in a space without a name. We had keys to each other's homes. She knew how I took my coffee and which shoulder hurt before a dust storm. I knew when a child had died on her floor because she became too cheerful and cleaned things that were already clean. We spent holidays together, argued like family, and touched each other only in ways we could explain. Sam's death had made every feeling dangerous. Loving Lila seemed like stealing something from him. Admitting it risked losing the one person who still connected me to the best parts of my past. Lila, I said, not now. You brought me to a lake at midnight without a swimsuit. handed me a letter from your brother, nearly drowned, recorded my employer confessing to altering reports, and used the word love. I think now has already arrived." She gave a shaky laugh. "When you list it that way, it sounds poorly planned. It was terribly planned. I found the letter at 4 in the afternoon. That explains nothing. It explains the lack of swimsuit." I walked around the bench. "Why did you invite me to swim instead of telling me the truth?" "Because Copper Hollow was the last place we were happy before Sam died." Her eyes shone. "And because I needed to know whether you would still follow me somewhere uncertain." "You could have asked." "I have been asking for years." I stopped in front of her. She continued before fear could close her throat. "Every Sunday dinner. Every time I came to your shop with food you forgot to eat. Every time I sat beside you in a hospital waiting room after a bad shift and you held my hand until sunrise. I kept thinking one day you would look at me and stop seeing Sam's little sister. I stopped seeing that a long time ago." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I promised him I would take care of you. I am not a responsibility he left you." "I know." "Do you?" I had no safe answer left, so I gave her the true one. "I love you," I said. "I have loved you long enough that I built my whole life around pretending it was friendship." Lila closed her eyes. I thought I had lost her. Then she stepped forward, took my face in both hands, and kissed me. It was not a careful kiss. It held grief, anger, relief, and years of unsaid things. I put my hands at her waist but did not pull her closer until she did it first. When she pressed against me, something I had kept locked for years finally gave way. She tasted like cold lake water and coffee she had not swallowed. When we separated, her forehead rested against mine. "You took too long," she whispered. "I was being responsible. You were being an idiot." "That too." She smiled, and I kissed her again, slower this time, with no emergency around us except the one inside my chest. Then the first drive loaded. A folder appeared on my laptop screen. The moment ended, but it did not disappear. Lila kept one hand in mine while we opened Sam's files. There were photographs, field logs, invoices, audio notes, and copies of engineering reports. The East Mesa Children's Pavilion had been built using expansion anchors from an unapproved supplier. The substituted anchors were cheaper and had failed heat cycle testing. Sam had documented cracking along a service corridor and warned Calder that repeated thermal expansion could compromise the suspended canopy above the pediatric entrance. The photographs were 6 years old. The hospital had endured 6 Arizona summers since then. Lila leaned closer to the screen. "That canopy is still there." "How many people use that entrance?" "Hundreds a day." My phone buzzed. A heat advisory had been extended. Temperatures were expected to reach 119 by afternoon. I searched the files for the latest inspection. Calder's firm had certified the canopy safe 8 months earlier. The inspection bore the name of an engineer who had retired before the date listed. "We need to close that entrance," I said. "Hospital administration will not close anything because 2 exhausted people found a flash drive in a lake." "They will if I put my license behind the warning." "You just said your license could be suspended." "Then I use it while I still have it." I called hospital leadership, the city building department, and the state engineering board, then sent an emergency notice with photographs and calculations. Lawyers called. Calder called. Lila's supervisor ordered her into a meeting. At 7:20, the hospital refused to close the entrance without an on-site assessment. "I'll do it," I said. Lila changed into spare scrubs she kept at my shop. I put on work boots and loaded inspection equipment into my second truck, an old pickup with unreliable paint but excellent tires. Before we left, she caught my arm. "You do not have to prove anything by walking into that hospital." "I know." "This is not about paying for Sam." "I know." Say what it is about. Children entering a building under a structure that may fail. And? I looked at her. And coming home with you when it is done. She nodded. Good answer. At East Mesa Children's Pavilion, security met us at the curb. The facilities director, Paul Kessler, stood beneath the canopy with 2 administrators and a lawyer. Above them, glass shade panels hung from steel arms anchored into a concrete wall. Heat shimmered across the pavement. You cannot conduct an inspection without authorization, the lawyer said. I'm not asking to enter the building. I am asking you to move everyone away from the canopy. Calder arrived before anyone answered. He stepped from his SUV wearing a dark suit that looked untouched by the heat. Ethan is emotionally compromised, he said. He removed proprietary files from private property last night and is misinterpreting preliminary data. Lila moved beside me. You followed us and threatened us. I came to prevent theft. Kessler looked from Calder to me. Is the canopy safe? Calder answered immediately. Yes. I looked up at the anchor line. When was it physically inspected? Last winter. By whom? Calder named the retired engineer. I held up the printed licensing record. He surrendered his stamp 14 months before your report. For the first time, uncertainty moved through the group. A metallic sound came from above us. Not loud, just a short, sharp ping. Every engineer learns to respect small sounds from loaded metal. I looked up. A crack had opened around the western anchor plate. Clear the entrance! I shouted. A mother was approaching with a little boy in a wheelchair. A volunteer pushed them beneath the canopy, confused by the raised voices. The second sound was louder. One of the glass panels dropped half an inch. I ran. The volunteer froze. I grabbed the wheelchair handles and drove it forward while Lila pulled the mother by the arm. Behind us, steel tore from concrete with a roar. The canopy collapsed. A glass panel struck the pavement where the wheelchair had been less than 2 seconds earlier. Another swung downward, caught on one support, and shattered against the curb. People screamed. Alarms began sounding inside the building. I covered the boy with my body until the movement stopped. Ethan! Lila's voice cut through the noise. I'm all right. The boy stared up at me, wide-eyed. Did the roof explode? Part of it tried, I said. But you were faster. I wasn't moving. Then your chair was faster. That earned a small, frightened smile. Lila knelt beside him, switching instantly into the calm voice she used with children. She checked him for cuts while I looked back at the entrance. The canopy lay twisted across the concrete. One failed anchor had a manufacturer code stamped along its sleeve. It matched Sam's photograph. Police, firefighters, hospital executives, and city inspectors arrived within minutes. Calder tried to leave. A city official stopped him at the parking exit after Lila played part of the recording from the lake. By noon, the hospital had closed 2 additional entrances built during the same expansion. By evening, the State Engineering Board announced an emergency review of Calder Structural Group. The story reached local news before either of us had slept. Then Calder did exactly what I knew he would do. He blamed me. His attorneys released a statement claiming I had approved the original substitutions, stolen confidential records, and staged a confrontation to hide my own negligence. A copy of my signed preliminary report appeared online. My name sat beneath specifications I had never approved. The firm suspended me. The state board opened a review of my license. By the next morning, strangers were calling me a hero and a criminal in the same comment section. Lila's hospital placed her on administrative leave for removing internal material, even though she had removed nothing. We sat in my mother's kitchen while television crews waited outside my workshop. My mother, Carol, served eggs as if breakfast could solve a public scandal. Eat, she ordered. Lila obeyed. My mother pointed at her. That is why I like her, and because she finally kissed some sense into you. I did not tell her Lila said. You have looked at each other like an unfinished sentence for 8 years, my mother replied. I am 71, not blind. Lila laughed. Then her phone rang. Her expression changed as she listened. What happened? I asked when she ended the call. My mother. She looked at the table. Calder's attorney contacted her. They offered a settlement. For what? Sam's death. They will admit procedural errors, pay damages, and protect your license if we surrender every copy of the files and agree not to speak publicly. My mother went still. How much? Lila told me. It was enough to pay off her mother's mortgage, fund retirement, and change their lives. What did she say? She said the decision was mine. And what do you want? I want my brother back. The truth of it emptied the room. She stood and walked on to the back porch. I followed but gave her space at the railing. Heat rolled across the yard. In the distance, news helicopters circled above the hospital. I could take it, she said. My mother has worried about money since my father died. Sam would want her secure. Maybe. You think I should refuse. I think Calder designed the offer to make you feel responsible for everyone's future. She turned. That is rich coming from you. I know. Your license is at risk. I know. If I sign, you keep your career. If you sign because you want peace, I will support you. If you sign to save me, I will spend the rest of my life knowing Calder used me to silence you. Her eyes filled. What if telling the truth destroys both of us? I stepped closer. Then we build again. You make that sound simple. It will not be simple. What if you resent me? I have already wasted years confusing fear with caution. I'm not wasting more. She searched my face. You would really walk away from Calder? From the firm? I already did. I emailed my resignation at 6 this morning. Her mouth opened. You what? He suspended me from a company I no longer work for. His timing was poor. Ethan, that firm is your entire career. No. Engineering is my career. Calder was one employer. You cannot make a decision like that because of me. I did not make it because of you. I took her hand. I made it because Sam was right. Calder changed reports. He endangered children. He taught me loyalty meant silence. I should have left years ago. And us? Us is the reason I finally stopped lying to myself. She began to cry then. Not dramatically and not beautifully. Her face crumpled and she pressed both hands against her mouth as though grief had been waiting years for permission. I pulled her into my arms. I'm so angry at him, she said against my chest. At Calder, at Sam, at you, at myself. You are allowed. I love you and I'm angry at you. You are allowed that too. She leaned back enough to look at me. You do not get to disappear when this becomes ugly. I won't. You do not get to decide I deserve someone with an easier life. I won't. You do not get to kiss me in a workshop and then act like it was grief. I definitely won't. Her mouth trembled. Good. I kissed her on the porch while helicopters moved across the sky and my old life collapsed one news alert at a time. It was not an escape from the crisis. It was a promise to remain present inside it. Lila refused the settlement. 3 days later, we testified before the State Engineering Board. Sam's digital recorder contained conversations with Calder, supplier invoices, and a final message recorded the night before his death. We listened to it together in a quiet conference room. Sam's voice came through the speaker rough with exhaustion. If this reaches Ethan, he will blame himself. He always thinks being strong means standing under the falling thing so nobody else gets hit. Tell him strength is also stepping aside long enough to see who pushed it. Lila covered her mouth. The recording continued. And tell Lila she does not need either of us to choose her life. She will choose it herself. The best we can do is be brave enough to stand nearby. I looked at her. She reached for my hand. Investigators matched Sam's logs to server backups and recovered my original report. It did not approve the substituted anchors. My signature page had been attached later. My license was cleared. Calder's was suspended pending a criminal investigation. The hospital reinstated Lila and offered her a patient safety role. She accepted only after securing written protection for nurses who reported facility concerns. That was aggressive, I said. That was specific. I'm proud of you. She took my hand. You were paid in cafeteria pie for reviewing the language. It was excellent pie. The public story ended faster than the private one. News vans disappeared. Comment sections found another scandal. The hospital repaired the entrance. Calder's name came off the firm's building, but Sam's absence did not vanish because the truth arrived. Some evenings, Lila cried for the brother she had lost twice, once to death, and once to the knowledge that he had been afraid and alone before it happened. Some nights I woke hearing metal tear from concrete and had to remind myself that the wheelchair had cleared the canopy. We did not heal each other like broken objects. We learned each other's wounds without demanding they close on schedule. I opened an independent safety consulting office in the front half of my workshop. My first clients were small clinics and schools that could not afford the large firms. Lila helped me design a plain language reporting system so custodians, nurses, teachers, and parents could flag problems without knowing engineering terminology. We called the program Sam's Line. 6 months after Copper Hollow, Lila moved into the small house next to my workshop. Not with me, though my mother complained that we were wasting perfectly good rent. Lila said separate houses were romantic because she could still make me knock. I knocked every time. We dated through grocery runs, burned dinners, bad shifts, and arguments about whether I was listening or merely waiting to solve things. We became better at asking instead of guessing. A year after the midnight swim, the Hart family regained access to Copper Hollow through a conservation agreement. The county converted the old camp into a public water safety center and grief retreat. Lila's mother donated Sam's remaining camp equipment. I volunteered to rebuild the dock. On opening night, the temperature was 94 after sunset, almost cool by Arizona standards. Families gathered along the shore. Children wore bright life jackets. A new race marker floated near the northern wall, though I had personally removed every abandoned fishing line from the area. Lila found me tightening the last bolt on the dock. She wore a blue summer dress and carried a canvas bag. "You are working at your own celebration," she said. "This bolt was loose. You installed it. Then I know who to blame." She sat beside me at the edge of the dock. Music and conversation drifted from the lights behind us. Across the water, the moon laid down the same silver path we had followed a year earlier. "I brought something," she said. "Evidence?" "A swimsuit." I looked at the bag. "Planning ahead. I'm concerned. I brought one for you, too." "Now I'm frightened." She smiled, but there was emotion beneath it. "Do you regret that night? The tire replacement was expensive. Ethan." I set down the wrench. "No," I said. "I regret what happened to Sam. I regret how long I let guilt make decisions for me. I regret every time I treated you like something fragile instead of someone brave. But I do not regret following you into that water." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I did not actually plan to forget the swimsuit." "I know." Her head lifted. "You know? You had 4 hours between finding the letter and picking me up. You packed food, towels, flashlights, a phone charger, and 3 kinds of bug spray. Nobody that organized accidentally forgets the central object required for swimming." She looked offended. "Why did you never say that?" I was waiting for the confession. Fine, I left it at home on purpose. Why? She traced one finger along the dock board. Because I knew you would give me something to wear. I wanted one small proof that the distance between us was not as fixed as you pretended. You risked hypothermia for symbolism? It was Arizona in July. The water was cold. You held on to me. I would have held on either way. I know that now. We sat quietly for a moment. Then I reached into my tool bag and took out a small wooden box. Lila stared at it. That better not be another key to underwater evidence. No water required. I opened the box. Inside was a silver ring set with a blue stone the color of copper hollow at noon. I had carried it for 3 weeks, waiting for honesty instead of spectacle. Lila's eyes filled. I used to think love meant keeping danger away, I said. You taught me it is a hand held out in deep water, truth before certainty, and staying when disappearing would be easier. Her tears slipped free. I cannot promise nothing will fail. That would be bad engineering. I can promise to admit when I am wrong and build with you instead of around you. I took a breath. Lila Hart, will you marry me? She laughed through her tears. That is the most romantic liability statement I have ever heard. Is that a yes? She took my face in both hands, exactly as she had in the workshop, and kissed me while people behind us began to notice. Yes, she whispered. It is absolutely a yes. Applause rose from the shore. My mother shouted that it had taken long enough. Lila's mother cried into both hands. Children who had no idea what was happening cheered because adults were cheering. I slid the ring onto Lila's finger. Then she stood and held out her hand. Midnight swim? It is 9:30. We are older now. Midnight is ambitious. You brought swimsuits. I did. Where is the danger? Her smile turned familiar and fearless. You still have to follow me. This time, I did not mistake hesitation for wisdom. I took her hand. We changed in the restored bathhouse and entered the lake beneath the moon, surrounded by voices, lanterns, and people who knew the truth about why the camp mattered. The water was still cold. Lila still complained. I still stayed close enough to reach her. At marker 17, she floated on her back and lifted her ring toward the stars. Sam would have made fun of your proposal, she said. He would have charged admission. He would have said the stars were watching. I looked at the sky, then at the woman beside me. Maybe they are. Lila found my hand beneath the water. A year earlier, she had brought no swimsuit because she wanted to force one honest moment into a friendship built on avoidance. She could not have known we would find evidence, face the man who betrayed Sam, stop a deadly collapse, lose our jobs, rebuild our names, and create something that might keep other families safe. Neither of us had known how the night would end. That was the point. Love had never asked us to know the ending. It had only asked whether, when the water turned dark and the truth became heavy, we would keep choosing to swim beside each other. We did. And we still do. What would you have done if your best friend invited you for a midnight swim and revealed she had brought no swimsuit, and a secret that could change both your lives? Share your answer in the comments. If this story stayed with you, please like, subscribe, and join me for the next one.